Hey everybody, my name is Brianna Lentz, and in today's project we are going to be creating these muslin Santas. This is an idea from a 1989 Better Homes and Gardens Country Christmas Crafts book. I create one Santa that is original to the book, and then the rest I created with my own creativity. If you like the designs of the Santas that are my original design, I will have a link down below which will take you to my website where I will have a free PDF download for you if you want to trace and use these patterns in your own creations in the future. I really loved this. I loved the simplicity of it and how you can make this as elaborate as you wanted of a project. I go through each of these different projects with you. If you haven't already, now is a great time to stop, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you're alerted every time I upload a new project, as well as liking this video if you do indeed like this project. So let's go ahead and get started into today's project. Like I said, this is an idea from Better Homes and Gardens Country Christmas Crafts. If you haven't already watched my previous flip through video, click that link that you see at the top of your screen and that'll take you to my read through of this book. But what I'm doing right now is I'm familiarizing myself with the materials needed and the instructions for this project. It's really simple. The most in-depth portion is going to be the sewing portion, which I refamiliarize myself with what it wants you to do. And you'll see that portion later in today's video. So I'm going to go ahead and trace the pattern that they gave us onto some tracing paper. And then I'm going to go ahead and create a pattern from there. Once I have the original pattern traced, I just trace the outline of the Santa. So that way I can take that to my printer, I make copies, and I use that as my base to create my own Santas. I then sketch my ideas on this paper with that outline, and I decide which ones I like and what I want to change. After I'm happy with what I sketched, I'm going to go ahead and take these back to my printer and make copies of these. What I will then do with the copies is I will take a dark pen and I will create what I want my final outline for my tracing onto the final product to be. So that's what you see here. I traced what I want to see on my final product. And I'm really happy. It's much simpler, it's less chaotic, and that will be much easier for when I'm tracing. Now what you see here is a light box. I will link a description box down below. I got mine off Amazon. I don't have affiliate links yet. Hopefully I'll be there one day. But I take a micron pen and I just trace the outlines onto some light muslin fabric. I have a tea-dyed muslin fabric that I wanted to play with, as well as just an original muslin fabric. This is very cheap fabric, and this is the base of our entire project, is this muslin fabric. You can get this at your local fabric store, or you can go to Walmart. And this is what it looks like on the light box, and then when you take it off in natural light, this is what the design will be. And you can see that using the light box is so easy for this process of tracing your patterns onto this fabric. It really isn't difficult at all. What I wanted to do next was go straight into painting. So I took my Santa that had the most open space that I thought would be the easiest to paint with, and I used that to paint. And I used painter's tape to hold it down while I was painting, so that way I would have the minimal distortion when I'm painting. And I started off watering down and thinning my paint. I'm using acrylic paint. And this completely saturated the fabric, which is a cool effect. However, I decided later on that I really wanted to do what the book advised you to do, was use a brush, like a dry brush technique, where you get your paintbrush full of paint and then you actually wipe most of the paint off on your towel and then you paint on the fabric. And what this does is it takes most of the paint off, but you're using like a light amount. So you have less saturation and it really creates a primitive, aged look. And it's so fun. And it gives you more room to play in while you're painting, because you can always add, but you can't really take away. And this process was really fun. Like, I could paint Santa Clauses all day and watch them come to life. Once I decided that if I touched it anymore, I would be overdoing it, I went ahead into my kitchen and I started tea dyeing all the muslin fabric that I wanted to use for my Santas. I am tea dyeing a lot of this fabric because it's going to be the backing for all but one of the Santas that you see. And and then I am also going to be using the tea-dye technique for one of the Santas, the Santa that had the most detail. And I think that this really created a cool look. If you have never tea-dyed before, what you're going to do is you're going to saturate your fabric with tea-dye, and you can let it sit there for as long as you want in the fabric. And then you place it in your oven at 200 degrees for 2 to 7 minutes or longer. That's up to your discretion, but really keep an eye on it because you do have fabric in your oven, so you don't want to walk away from it. So I'm going to let this sit with this black tea dye on it for probably, I think I did 15 to 20 minutes because I really wanted a deep color, but I didn't want to add any coffee to it. Once I'm happy with that, then I'm going to go ahead and move on to another Santa that I've already tea dyed, and I am going to embroider. And this was so fun. I have never embroidered in hand before, but since I've been cross-stitching in hand, I realized that I could easily embroider in hand with the same technique since this had no batting behind it. And so that's what I did, and I used two different colors. I used a cream color and a white color just to add some interest, but I didn't embroider the entire thing. I left some black micron pen because I really felt like it added a lot of interest to it, and I love how this turned out. Alright, so let's recap. I've got my embroidered Santa, my painted Santa, I have my tea-dyed Santa, and I did a machine embroidery Santa off camera, and I used a stabilizer behind that just for kicks because I'm learning how to machine embroider. And then this was my original test Santa that I did last week to see how this process would come together. Next, I have all of my backing fabrics, and I'm ready to start sewing. Alright, so what I wanted to do first is I wanted to do a quick test run with the Santa that I was least concerned about. So I'm going to quickly go through this and show you what I did on this one and then take you step by step with the embroidered Santa. So first what we're going to do is we're going to take our two pieces of fabric, put them right sides together, and pin them together. And be careful of where you're pinning so you don't rip out any of your previous stitches. And you're going to take this to your sewing machine, and because I have an embroidered outline, I am actually going to sew about a 1/4 inch around the embroidered line, and I'm going to use my presser foot, the edge of my presser foot, as my guide. Next, I'm going to be cutting the Santa Claus out using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, maybe a 1/2 inch, and I would recommend 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. What I'm going to be doing next is I am going to be creating slits around the Santa. Basically what that's going to do is just like if you were sewing a garment around a curve, is it's going to allow the fabric ease when you turn it out right side out, that it all lays flat and it doesn't pinch or leave puckering. This is really helpful, and that's why I gave myself a little bit extra seam allowances so that way I could create those little notches in there without worrying about cutting into my embroidery. Also on this one, I gave myself a smaller opening to turn it right side out, so I cut the corners. On all of my other Santas, I actually left the entire bottom all the way open and then whip stitched the entire bottom closed, and I liked that finish a lot better. So you see me doing that here, but I actually really liked the finish of an entire whip stitched bottom. And also, I am using a stick to get all of the curves out. I really needed a fiddle with this one in particular a lot, just to make it seem as finished as possible. Like, it's supposed to look primitive, so I'm not worried about it, but I did want a nice clean finish as much as I could. Alright, at this point, we are on the home stretch. I'm going to double my thread and whip stitch the bottom closed. Let me tell you, if you're not confident in your hand stitching skills, doing 6 Santas will definitely improve your skills. At no point, and no matter like what point or skill set you're starting at, by my last Santa, I was looking at my finished product and I was like, dang girl, those stitches look great. So will yours. Alright, moving on to our last type of Santa, we are going to be actually stitching right on the outside line of this Santa. and I couldn't see where my lines were on the back of my fabric. So I again used my light box and I used a friction pen and I outlined the line so that way I could confidently stitch right on that line. And you'll see why they advise you to do this. This creates a really cool effect in your stuffed pillow. All right, and here's the finished gang. I think I said 6 Santas before. I meant 5. Anyway, I loved this process. I loved what creativity this pulled out of me, and I can confidently say that I will make more of these, and I will not just stop as making Santas. I have a lot of ideas. If you don't already subscribe to my channel, I highly encourage you do. I also upload flosstube videos bi-weekly, so if this is up your alley, I bet you'll like watching my flosstube videos, and I will probably share more of the things that I create this week there. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. I really appreciate your time. I hope you're having a great week. I hope you decide to make some of these yourself. If you do, I would love to see them. Tag me on my Instagram here, tag me anywhere, leave me a comment. Go ahead and go to my website, briannalentz.com, where I will have these free PDF downloads for all of my original designs. And I'll see you guys in the next project. Bye.